Okay, friends. Doc South here. See, oh gosh, this is September 11th, 2018. Of course, 17 years ago, right? On 2000, this day in 2001, we had the Trade Center attack. I remember for me, I was coming back from the bank. I believe it was a Monday morning, right? I'm pretty sure. And I had to put our weekend receipts into the bank or else. And I was listening to the radio coming home. I think if I didn't have I think I actually had Howard Stern on. I always kind of liked listening to him. He was on FM. And I remember they broke into one of his skits, one of his things, and interview, and said how there was trouble down at the Trade Center, that someone had somehow a plane had hit the building. For me, I thought, oh my gosh, some guy in a Cessna or something must have crashed. One of the traffic helicopters may have hit it somehow. And so I tuned over to the news station, and they were basically saying somewhat the same thing. You really didn't, no one quite had a take on what it was, but you sensed something was up. And of course, eventually, yeah, it was doggone, a jetliner hit. I remember thinking, God, how could that be? Those pilots are very good. They'd never run into a building like that. It'd be almost impossible. And well, it turned out no. Eventually, we got the feeling the people were wondering, but then all of a sudden, when in all the commotion that was going on with the first building being on fire, the second plane hit, and whoa, yeah, we knew there was trouble. I remember just at that point, you find yourself glued to the TV. We had to pull ourselves away, Sandy and I, and get down to the store we had down in the valley. We were kind of up on a hill that overlooked our town, and we actually, on our way down, we could actually see the smoke from New York. If you looked over in the direction of New York City, I think on a good clear day like it was, you could just see the top of the Trade Center, and we saw the smoke coming out. We said, "Oh my God, that don't look good. That's awful." And there all we had down at our store was radio, and we were getting radio reception. I remember looking out the window of our store, and there were cars. All of a sudden, cars. Usually the traffic's going towards the city. There were cars now going fairly fast away from the city. They were heading more as if they were heading home. I had the feeling it was people perhaps trying. I don't think everybody on Earth had cell phones then. Well, I guess some did, some didn't. And I had the feeling that was people going home to get to the TVs to see what was going on. Maybe housewives were shopping, heard what was up. They wanted, maybe their families worked in that neck of the woods, or worse yet, in the building itself. And oh boy, so you could see that there were emergency vehicles here and there flying around, I guess getting into position in case there was going to be. By then, I think folks knew it was terrorism. It sure looked it. I know there was a man and his wife came into our store, and I said, I think we're going to be closing. There's been an attack on the World Trade Center, and well, no one's going to be here to shop in an antique shop today. And the guy says, what do you mean? And he evidently didn't have his radio on in his car. He was riding with his wife. They were probably small talking. And he says, my God, I'm a cop over near Hoboken, or one place or another, out that neck of the woods. Oranges, I think. And he said, man, I got to get back. Come on, dear, we're going. He says, yeah, they might need me for extra duty. I got to get back there. Let's roll. And so they were gone. It's I don't know. There were, like I said, just cars and confusion. No one quite knowing. Then we heard about the Pentagon, and of course out in Shanksville, somehow a plane crashed. No one knew the exact situation for Shanksville, but sheesh. And me, I didn't know. My kids, both my son Burgess, my daughter Sunshine, on occasion worked at the Trade Center. My son would set up sound systems for meetings. Yes, he had a job doing that. I couldn't get him on the phone. I couldn't get him. The My daughter Sunshine, Sunny, on occasion held meetings. Held seminars at the Trade Center. Luckily, I was able to get a hold of her, and she was okay. And then we both said how we'd be working on trying to get a hold of my son Burgess, and as soon as we heard something, we'd let each other know. The other thing was the phones were getting kind of jammed up, so it was getting kind of hard to see what was up, and of course that made the horror all the worse, thinking my son might be in that. Luckily, I don't know about who, and luckily about oh gosh, about somewhere around 3:30 or so, I was able to get a hold of my son. He had worked all night at doing I guess doing sound for a concert, and so he had come home in the wee hours of the morning and fell asleep. He was probably the only one on earth didn't know what was going on. I said, Burge, go look over where can you see the Trade Center where you live? He says, yeah, I can see it easily. He says, well, I said, go look at it. He comes back on the phone. He says, what? It's not there. What happened? There's all this smoke. And I explained what was happening. So, and I was very thankful he was okay. His wife, Rona, same thing, okay. Woof. I had friends who had parents there. One of my friends, good friend, I won't say his name, but a good friend, his dad just got out. He came out the door of the place. Bodies were falling out of the building near him. One of those bodies could have killed you if it hit you. He said it was like raining bodies. I guess the building was still standing at that point. There's I I don't know. It was just I remember thinking, my God, why would anyone even think? In my wildest dreams, I couldn't think of doing that to people. I don't know. It was unreal, absolutely unreal. Of course, the Pentagon, that sounded like that was going horrible. Um, just it was a very scary day, and you kept waiting for the next axe to fall. Evidently, that was about it, but boy, that was more than enough. The I know later for the cleanup, I've run into people that were there for the cleanup, and they said, "My God, you had to keep going." They knew it was toxic. I think it was pretty obvious it was, and but they kept going. They had to. It was so many people had to be found and accounted for, and you never know. I think for a while anyway, they were getting some people out that were still alive. And then well, it went from rescue to recovery. I know I interviewed a guy who trained dogs, search dogs, and he said he was there a lot, and he said you just wouldn't believe it. The dogs had to wear like dog sneakers so that they couldn't, it wouldn't hurt their feet. He said also after a while you had to pull the dog out of the search area because they were just getting too depressed. I said, dogs get depressed? He said, they sure do. And these dogs they just sensed all the tragedy, and it was, in many cases, more than the poor dogs could take. Um, just, if you're to the point where dogs are getting depressed, you can imagine how the people felt. The, uh, the one story, and I don't know if this is an urban legend or not, but I dare say it probably is true. The fellow who did the dog search and rescue effort said at one point, fairly deep into the building, and I guess months afterwards, they were still digging, and they evidently found on one of the floors they found a stretcher with a woman's body on the stretcher. It was obvious she had been injured prior to the building collapsing. In other words, she was trapped by the collapse. She was on a stretcher, and they said the bodies of the two people who were carrying her to get her out were right there too. I'm sure they heard the building coming down, and they could have run, but they didn't. That one kind of gets to me. I know many of the rescue people I worked with, that would have been them. And I mean, it wasn't them. They were down in the Carolinas heading this way, you can count on it, in their ambulances to do what they could. And, but yeah, whoever those rescue people were that were helping that lady, whether they were civilians or paramedics or maybe policemen, they they were there, and they could have run, but they didn't. If they ran with the lady, which I think is pretty cool. I also remember, I was just thinking of this now. A lady, no, there were all these. There was somehow someone did a video. Maybe they had a smartphone. I don't know, but they had a video of people going down the steps at the Trade Center, and I can remember one fireman, a young fellow with glasses, had an axe in his hand, some piece of equipment, and he was going up. He was going up shortly thereafter the building went in. I'm sure that was the last anyone saw of him. I don't know. It was a day for the worst in people, and it was a day for the best. And luckily, honestly, I think the best in people came out for that day. So in one way, it was, well, it was a noble day, and another day it was a shameful day. In another way, it was shameful. Anyway, God bless those people. We'll see you later, and thank you, and well, be friendly today. Okay, we'll see you later.